Hi everyone. I just thought I would update you on the kind of responses that I have been getting from my sort of call to convene over the topic of whether or not offering amnesty to people in the sort of middle ground is something that we should look at doing. Um, so anyway, I'm not going to recap everything I've said because you either kind of are with me on this or you're not. It would take too long to recap it every time. So I had a response that said, so you would grant a free pass to sworn Nazis who have murdered 14,000 plus Donbass men and women and children this past 8 years, that are currently hiding amongst and stopping civilians leaving their cities, so they might regroup to do it all again. Denazification doesn't mean letting them off with it. So it's a fair and complicated question, and I appreciate the comparison. I've only just laterally come to understand a little bit about what's going on in the Ukraine, mostly through the UK column, which I perceive to be a reliable source. My first thoughts are that I'm not sure that I would get a say in what you're talking about and how it plays out in terms of a peace process. I think the people of Donbass would be the best qualified, with perhaps, I don't know, some sort of loving mediator to figure out the answer as to what should be done with those people who've killed their loved ones. I think anyone that holds extreme views that involve hating or killing other groups of people are not healthy humans, and that they've become that way because of what they've experienced or been exposed to. And perhaps if we can find a way to navigate the crisis regarding this middle tier that we've been talking about, it might inform, that process in the way that I'm suggesting that perhaps we learn from the South Africans. Um, the first few times a society tries to move from one model to another will inevitably be flawed, as is everything to some degree. I've spent some time reading about the Second World War and pondering, amongst many other important considerations, why did people go along with it? And the more that I read, the more that I've come to believe that fear begets inhumanity. I also don't think that any human kills another human without suffering consequence, even if those of us who haven't done it don't understand what those consequences are. I feel like our understanding of why people behave the way that they do has to inform the way that we move forward. Otherwise, we'll be stuck with this ineffective model of justice, where, however well-intentioned, the Nuremberg trials were sufficient of a charade that this could happen again. And I explain that I'm just thinking out loud, which I am. And the person is kind enough to reply, and they talk about how understanding the human condition has to begin with knowing what we are and what would influence that which we are. Most people, when asked that question, would reply blood and bone with some grey matter thrown in. This person says variable. Whilst this appears to be the case, the truth is far stranger. And if you were to ask what affects the path of lightning, it could lead to a far more fulfilling answer. Both are electrostatic and as such swayed, molded, guided by a myriad of changes, with every cell being connected to every cell in the body and our brain receiving, transmitting on a universal level. So childhood trauma doesn't really cut it when you begin to imagine the frequencies deliberately flooding or our resonating cell structures from psychopathic eugenicists. Sorry, this is a little deep. Maybe asking the likes of Jordan Peterson for his input might move the information a little further along the road. And I say that I'm sorry, I'm too tired to answer tonight properly. This was last night. I'm all about Tesla and energy though. So I'm really interested in what you have to say. I wasn't referencing childhood trauma particularly. I was talking about a greater ill than that, a societal trauma and intergenerational conditioning. I listen to Jordan Peterson often. He's a fascinating mind, a great wordsmith, and a pioneer of what shouldn't have to be brave, saying with respect what you think. Thank you again for your thoughts, and thank you for the idea of approaching JP. And I get a good reply about intergenerational conditioning playing a huge role in today's cauldron of dysfunction. We have the sons and grandsons of the Third Reich being sought by Spetsnaz, having been funded, encouraged, and armed, multi-generationally maimed, and armed by a multi-generationally maimed Khazarian mafioso. You can tell I'm out of my depth with this, but anyway, how many generations or even millennia would it take to find a root? Best wishes. So there is trauma all over the world, and I am not an expert in any of it. And this person seems to know quite a bit about, I understand the derivation from the Third Reich, but I don't know much about the Khazarian mafioso. And I do feel, though, that that was a really worthwhile exchange, and that I learned something from it, and I appreciate the person getting back to me. As a result, I have emailed Nelson Mandela University and asked them if they have an expert, professor, doctor, anybody who would be willing to talk to us about the truth and reconciliation process, how successful they believe it to have been, what the repercussions were, positive, negative, and so on and so forth, so that we can all learn together a bit more about that. I received other responses, which let me just see if I can. It's better if I just, go and find them. And that was, so here we go. Try again. So here we have, absolutely not. Every doctor who willingly injected people without concern for the consequences must face the results of their action. The same applies to nurses et al. Prosecute them, strike them off. They've ruined the lives of millions. Now it's payback time. I thank that person for their response, and because they had only watched or even just maybe read the blurb for the first video that I made on the subject, I said, I understand your anger and I think it's righteous, but I think there's an issue of expedience to be concerned with, not just benevolence, and invite them to see how the conversation has evolved. And they reply that there's no evolution, and as for the gutless, spineless cowards who refused families access to the dying loved ones and hid behind, I was only following orders, didn't work out too well at Nuremberg, did it? So I just reiterate that my point is not just about benevolence, it's about expedience. I feel that we must talk and remember that the people in the middle, the people that I'm talking about, were intergenerationally conditioned and tyrannized, and that if we too only offer a form of tyranny, then they have nowhere to go, and it's likely that we won't turn this around before the WEF and the WHO achieve their aims. We also have to consider that no matter how well-intentioned Nuremberg was, it was sufficient of a charade for this to happen again. I feel that if we don't listen to the spectrum of opinion about this, then we may find ourselves in the same bracket as the people that we're so angry with. We try to tell them, but they wouldn't listen. They were so set upon their course of action that they refused to listen. And I just go on to share some links to other information to let the person know that I have paid a personal cost myself in my immediate family for what's going on at the moment. So I don't come at this from a perspective of not understanding. Anyway. So anyway, somebody else says, I totally agree with you, the person, not me. I'm not a scientist, but I can read, and I did my research into those evil injections. The doctors and other medical staff should have done the same. I haven't had a chance to reply to them. Another person replied, no. And I just said that I was sorry, and that would they mind looking at my responses that I'd written to the previous person, and thanked them for their thoughts. And I said that I know that we appear at first to disagree, but I've come so far in the past 2 years. I know that that as a starting point doesn't mean very much, and I'm very grateful that they've taken the time to respond and engage. And they say, who are you exactly telling people what to think? I feel we can think for ourselves. There's been enough letting them get away with it, ignoring and turning backs on the evil. That's how it got thus far in the first place. It will continue to, if the mainstream media continue their bleep, and it has to stop. I reply that I'm sorry if I've come across as someone who's trying to tell you what to think, that it was never my intention. I say at the beginning of the video that I think censorship is unacceptable, and that what I am trying to do is create a forum for a conversation where everyone's views are welcome, so that somewhere within the melting pot of all our ideas, there may be a way forward that's best for humanity. And I apologize sincerely for any offense caused. And I don't think that I need to share any more with you. Oh no, there was one more that would be really worth sharing with you, and then I'll give you peace. One person said, perhaps indeed there should be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission too, as well as a Nuremberg too. Both are required. The systematic progression towards the current outcome has been so total that, as you say, there are countless people up to their eyeballs in this who have simply been carrying on with life as usual, doing what they're programmed to do in a seamless progression. Trust in orders, top-down commands has always been part of their career structure, and independent thinking impossible. These people are both victims as well as perpetrators. However, there are also a smaller but significant number who have known and continue to know every last detail of this monumental tragedy. Dr. Rainer Fulmach and his colleagues have already put together a good list of the deeply guilty, but as I'm sure they would emphasize, there are many more to be, as it were, unmasked behind the scenes. By being too punitive upon those only following orders, we will not reveal and remove the true perpetrators. So I thank the person for replying, and I say that yes, I think that there are a top tier that are in a different bracket from those being squeezed by both sides, and that I agree with them that the grand jury of public opinion and everyone who convened it and contributed to it are doing a fine job of trying to plow through that morass, and that the remaining concern is the people that they so evocatively describe as being up to their eyeballs in it. Whoever wins their allegiance wins this war. At the moment, they're not with us, but I believe that many of them hear us loud and clear and would defect if we were offering them anything other than retribution. Thank you for your comments. I'm not sure whether I mentioned it above or in another group, that yeah, the Truth and Reconciliation process. So I just tell them a little bit of something that I've already told you, so I won't reiterate it. That's where we are so far. I haven't had a response of any kind from the person who I was so delighted to hear from, and that I do think is a really exceptional mind. And I don't necessarily expect to receive a response. I know that they are phenomenally busy, and that I'm small fry, and that they may, you know, I don't know who wants to have this conversation. I guess I can only find out by offering it up and seeing what happens. And I am so grateful to those of you who are making space for it. Thank you so much. And I will give you peace now. And I love you. And thank you. Bye.